In this week's segment of News You Can Use, presented by Darley, we go across the pond once more to our own Emma Berry. Emma, how's it going over there and how's the rain?
Still raining. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going into heavy ground this weekend for Champion Stakes. But before that, we're still sort of only just over halfway through the colossal Tattersalls October yearling sale in Newmarket. So we're into the second week and book two. But book one was I think it was described by the Tattersalls chairman, Edmund Marnie, as outlandish, and I would back him up on that because I could barely stay in my seat for running around chasing people buying seven-figure lots. I've never known a sale like it.
I mean, it was hot on the heels of what basically has been happening over here stateside, September sale, Resolute Racing, and now we have Kia and Ammo Racing. What's been the general feeling about Ammo Racing buying everything in sight? How many times did you have to interview Kia?
Well, yeah, he did. He initially said he didn't do interviews, but then he did consent to some interviews, and he works with Bloodstock agent Alex Elliott, who was also called up quite a lot to speak about what they were doing. As you know, he was active. The team was active at Keele in September, and even more so here in Newmarket. I mean, I don't think anyone could have predicted the level at which they spent last week. It was around sort of 22 million guineas, and mostly, some of them on their own, some in partnership with Al Shakab Racing, and they were driving the market as well as underbidders to, Sheikh Mohammed, the Godolphin team, Coolmore. Godolphin was the biggest spender in ammo, very close up there as well. Between those two, just those two entities, they accounted for about 35% of the turnover of Book One, which was the equivalent of roughly $175 million for 345 horses altogether. So, I mean, it was a phenomenal week. And along with Keene in September would certainly be the strongest sale that's taken place anywhere this year, I would say.
Is Sheikh Tamim and Watherton Racing basically focusing their spending sprees on ready-made racehorses as opposed to buying young horses at sales, or are they really involved in the sales as well?
A bit of both. A lot of in-training purchases through this season and last, and they tend not to identify themselves in the yearling sales process. But their agent is Richard Brown of Blandford Bloodstock. Now, he does buy for a lot of other people as well. And he was the sort of third, or Blandford Bloodstock as the agency was the third leading buyer at Book One. And I'm sure that a number of those purchases will end up running in the Watherton Racing Silks. They're another team sort of amassing, a really sort of strong team of, well-bred horses that, you have to think they're going to be going down the road of eventually standing stallions and obviously having a decent broodmare band, as that's the focus now for Ammo Racing. They've got some nice horses to retire to start, including King of Steel, who won the Champion Stakes this time last year. And that's how their focus is shifting as well, along with some other new players like Salhir Stud from Saudi Arabia. I mean, there's a lot of emerging nations coming through and seeming to focus their buying on Europe and starting breeding operations in Britain, which obviously will help this country.
This would be for Zoe as much as Emma. So, Zoe, why would a buyer like Sheikh Tamim want not to identify themselves after the fact, after they've actually, not during the bidding process, I understand that, but after they've purchased? I mean, why the secrecy?
I have got no idea. I don't know what the deal is with that, because Emma, we all know it all comes out in the end. Like, there's no hiding anything anymore.
Well, no, as soon as the horses are registered as in training or entered for races, we know who they're running for. I don't know. That's been a little bit their profile at public auctions, certainly, possibly to do with him being the emir and the head of state in Qatar. Albeit, Sheikh Mohammed from Dubai was there all week through Book One last week, and very obviously bidding alongside his agent Anthony Stroud. So I guess it just depends on the individuals, and at this moment they're sort of a little bit more private in in the initial stages of their purchases.
Have there been any surprises as far as freshman sire, new sires, anything that really hit the mark that was a surprise or perhaps wasn't just sold like hotcakes so far?
No real surprises. I mean, I think a lot of people were expecting the St Mark's Basilica yearlings to sell well. He was the champion 2-year-old, champion 3-year-old, and he's they've been well supported. A stallion who's sort of figuring a little bit more at book 2 this week. He's got very small books. That Study of Man. He's got a very interesting runner on Saturday. Favourite for the Champion Fillies and Mare Stakes. That's Kalpana, the Jobmont filly, and Study of Man is an extraordinarily well-bred horse. He's by Deep Impact, and he's out of a Stormcat daughter of the great Miesk. I mean, you hardly find a nicer pedigree than that, in my opinion. And he's covered quite small books at Landwade Stud in Newmarket, but his runners, especially now he's got his first 3-year-olds this year, and they've really made quite a splash, from the numbers that he has on the ground. And he's starting to sort of rise in some people's opinions. And, he's a couple of his yearlings particularly sold very well yesterday, one going to Joseph O'Brien, one going over to France to Andre Fabre. They're starting to get into those bigger yards. So he's going to be a stallion to keep an eye on. He's quite an under-the-radar horse, really. But it'll be interesting to see how he develops as he covers bigger books. And he certainly did cover, I think, around just over 100 this year. So we'll be seeing, hopefully, some more from him. I think he's a really interesting horse.
Well, now that I've exhausted my supply of sales questions, which would be one, let me move on to the racing. The British Champions Day. That's something that we all follow over here. If for no other reason than we typically get some Breeders' Cup horses out of Champions Day, especially from the Coolmore contingent. So tell us about some of the horses we can be really focused on this weekend.
Well, I promised myself I wouldn't mention Kyprios again because I think I mention him every time I come in here. But Kyprios is running on Saturday in the Long Distance Cup. He's just the best there around, and he's a terrific horse. Just an absolute one of those heart on his sleeve horses that just is fantastic to follow. So he'll be favourite for the Long Distance Cup. And then I mentioned Kalpana earlier, who's also favourite for the fillies and mares. The two, it's 4 Group 1 races and a Group 2 on Saturday. The 2 big Group 1s, if you like, in my opinion, the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes. And we're going to see Tamfana coming back from the Sun Chariot, hopefully. She won her first Group 1 just a couple of weeks ago at Newmarket. Very interesting filly on the up for also an on-the-up trainer, David Monouisier, who's French but trains in Britain. And he's a real trainer to follow, in my view. He gets terrific results from horses not bought really expensively. This filly cost €20,000 at the German yearling sale a couple of years ago. She's by Soldier Hollow, who is a terrific stallion in Germany, but is not high profile here. So she's going to be interesting going up against Charin, who's sort of champion miler elect in Britain. He's about to retire actually to Sumbay in France next year, but he's been a terrific horse for Nolan Bizakov and his trainer Roger Varian. But probably what could be story of a few weekends ago at Newmarket is a horse called Prague, and he's been supplemented for the QE2. And he's one that got away from Coolmore. It doesn't happen very often, but this time last year, his owner Amadeo Dalpos, who is also his rider and is also the head lad for his trainer Dylan Cunha, bought him for 10,000 guineas at the horses training sale. And he's now a Group 2. He hadn't raced before that. He's a 4-year-old. He's run this year, and he's now a Group 2 winner who's been supplemented for the QE2. And it would be quite a story if, within a year of buying him for such a relatively small amount, he's now lining up in a Group 1 on one of the biggest days in Britain. So that's going to be a lovely story to follow. And Champion Stakes itself, we've got Economics, who's, the horse that a lot of people are talking about here. He's unbeaten this season in 4 runs. He won the Irish Champion Stakes, beating August Rodin, and he's now going up against Calandigan, who was second to City of Troy last time at York in the Jobmont International. So that's a real sort of British-French clash. William Haggis against Francis Graffard, 2, very exciting 3-year-olds taking each other on. And one horse in that race that I just think probably might be overlooked but shouldn't be is another French raider, Irazine, who's a 7-year-old but loves the soft ground, is very versatile over distance, and I think actually should be taken quite seriously on Saturday, even with those two big horses in the race.
Economics would be the one to follow, right? Unbeaten in 4 starts. He missed the Derby. Like, he is the headline horse. How's he going to handle the ground? And do we know where we're running? Because round course, flat course, jumps course, which course are we going on while the cats and dogs keep falling?
They haven't quite made the final decision as far as I'm aware at this stage, but it looks like they're going to be going to the inner track, which is, used as the jumps track through the winter, but obviously hasn't been raced on through the summer. So, hopefully the ground will be a little better there. It's a question mark over how he'll handle really testing ground. He's a big, powerful, long striding horse. Hopefully he'll get through it. It's obviously going to be the same for all of them. Calandigan won at Royal Ascot on completely different ground. It's going to be a test, and it's a bit of an unknown, but he is the horse that people will want to see on Saturday. Economics, no question.
17 have been declared. I think Aiden had 6 or 7. Do we know which ones are going? I know Los Angeles. Can he bounce back from the Arc? I mean, that's a tough go. Would he be going? Do we know yet?
No, I mean, final decks will be made on Thursday morning. So we'll sort of hear the very final line of the confirmation stage on Monday. Yeah, they've all stood their ground, and I guess he will wait and see, because as you say, it's quite a quick turnaround from the Arc, which was running quite testing ground itself. So it's obviously a question of how much that's taken out of him. So yes, it's unknown at the moment exactly which of their team will turn up, but they'll have something, that's for sure. And Los Angeles is obviously the standout of the entries at the moment from Ballydoyle.
Obviously over here right now, as you know, everything's the focus is sort of shifted towards the Breeders' Cup. And one of the challenges that I face every year about this time is that a lot of times the European contingent doesn't really get solidified until you get even closer to the Breeders' Cup than we are now, even after British Champions Day. I mean, we know about City of Troy. We know Godolphin's keen on Notable Speech coming over for the mile. I've read about Big Evs coming for the turf sprint and his young mate Big Mojo for the juvenile turf sprint. Maybe Facteur Cheval for the classic. He's American owned now. So what are some of the other European horses, if you have your ear to the ground, about that we might be looking forward to seeing for the Breeders' Cup?
Well, I gather Ramatuelle is coming from France for the Breeders' Cup Mile as well. I saw Notable Speech actually have a workout on Saturday morning on the racecourse at Newmarket, and he's looking in great order. And that's obviously, as you say, been his long-stated aim to try to get his trainer, Charlie Appleby's 4th consecutive Breeders' Cup Mile win, which will be quite something. But Ramatuelle, absolutely, she's been a filly that has been sort of knocking on the door all season in the top races, and then was extremely impressive in the Prix de la Forêt on Oak Day. That's 7 furlongs. But she can definitely cope with the mile as well. And her trainer, Christopher Head, son of the legendary Freddie Head, is absolutely intent on bringing her to America. And that's, I think, should be a very interesting contender there, along with, I'm presuming, Porta Fortuna, who has been, an absolute revelation this season in all the top mile races. She's an absolute standout filly, and American owned as well, and was obviously over last year too. So for Donica O'Brien, I'm sure she'll be returning. And then I think possibly in the turf, we could look out for JRB, who is a Group 2 winner here. He's a decent horse. He was second to Economics in the summer in Deauville, and he's trained by Brian Meehan, who's won the turf twice with Dangerous Midge and obviously Red Rocks, of course. So, he's a trainer that loves to aim at the Breeders' Cup when he's got a good one, and JRB is a horse that needs to take another step forward, but that seems to be the plan for him to come for the turf as well.
Thanks for that.
Great stuff, Em.
Yeah, thanks for the pronunciation on Ramatuelle, by the way. I was wondering about that.
Emma, I got one more question. I just happened to pop on your Twitter before we got on. Who are rattlesnakes?
Oh,
there's
this Lloyd Cole Commotions. Yeah, and I can't believe it was an album, Rattlesnakes. It was the first album for Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, and I'm really showing my age now that's one of my favourite albums of all time, and it's 40th anniversary this week. So there we go.
I'll have to look it up. And you too. That's you, Randy. Rattlesnakes. Let's look it up.
Have we transitioned to music now? Is that
Yes.
Is that where we are? Okay. The rattlesnake. I haven't heard of that horse.
There's a good name for a horse, actually. I might use that in the future.
It could be, yes.
There is a horse over here that was called Rattlesnake. I think he's been retired right now.
Okay.
All right. Well, Emma, thank you so much for joining us. That was Emma Berry with News You Can Use. You heard Emma Berry talk about some of Night of Thunder's runners in the upcoming British Champions Day and what a year he's having. His 3-year-old colt Economics won the Grade 1 Irish Champion Stakes, and Desert Flower took the Grade 1 Fillies Mile on Friday. He is also the sire of the brilliant Royal Ascot winner Fairy Godmother and the undefeated, exciting Grade 3 Stakes winner Ombudsman. They are among 16 stakes winners he had in 2024, a year in which he also notched his first $1 million Euro yearling. He is most definitely a sire on the rise.
Night of Thunder.
Night of Thunder.
He's definitely the heir apparent to Dubawi from what I've seen.
Desert Flower will remain unbeaten.
Thumbing Night took a batter.